Hey guys, Ron here, and Pokemon theories are super fun to read, experience, or come up with, but sometimes the Pokemon franchise produces more and more evidence that turns these theories into highly unlikely fanfiction. It's totally alright to enjoy these theories, but when you go around peddling these stories as fact, it sometimes does more harm than good. So in this video, I'm gonna address a few Pokemon theories that are almost completely false. That way, you don't go around spreading them as fact. But I could be wrong too, so it's a good idea to bring another person to challenge me. Since I'm literally talking about Pokemon theories, why in the world would I not bring on my friend and Pokemon theory expert, Keeper Toby, to help us?
Thanks, Ron. Though I actually haven't come up with a new Pokemon theory in a solid minute, and the reason that they're so difficult to come up with, one of the big reasons, is that as new games and new bits of information to do with the Pokemon world come out, sadly some of them get debunked. Although, I want to argue with you about a few of them here, because while some of them, okay, granted, have been proven to be false, others of them, if you really stretch, could well be true.
I mean, yeah, while half of these are 100% proven false, some of them are still debatable. While more evidence points to these theories being false, it's totally fine if you believe in some of them being correct, but all of them have been slowly phased out by new information that we've been given. The perfect example would be the theory that the legendary beasts used to be the Kanto evolutions.
So we all know by now that the three legendary beasts have a somewhat miraculous origin. When a freak storm destroyed the Brass Tower in the Critique City, Ho revived three unnamed Pokemon that had perished in the fire. These Pokemon are known as Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, and the theory goes that they used to be the evolutions, Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon respectively.
And for a long time I truly believed in this theory. It makes sense since the Kimono girls are evolution masters. The hidden abilities of the beasts match up with these Pokemon, and there's even a temple in Pokemon Ranger where in order to reach the legendary beasts, you have to use these evolutions to unlock the door. So the two trios definitely seem to be linked.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that the beasts were once evolutions, and in fact the evidence is very circumstantial. And for one thing, there is different sets of legendary beasts all across the Pokemon world, from Johto to the aforementioned Fior Ranger region, or the region for Pokemon Colosseum, the Ore region. So if this theory is to be believed, it would mean that every Entei was once a Flareon, every Raikou was once a Jolteon, and every Suicune was once a Vaporeon across the whole of the Pokemon world. Seems a little bit hard to believe. On top of that, in the Pokemon Origin Special, we do see some silhouettes of the Pokemon that deceased and became these legendary beasts, and those silhouettes don't look a lot like evolutions. Sure, these silhouettes could be symbolic, but I think the evidence is looking less and less likely.
And to top it all off, if the evolutions were truly the ones to be trapped in the fire, wouldn't Vaporeon be able to put the fire out, and wouldn't Flareon be able to walk through the fire and escape? And if they were trapped by debris, wouldn't they be able to get out using their elemental powers? I mean, these three are pretty strong, but regardless, while it is a nice bit of headcanon and you can totally theorize about it,
like I have,
yeah, have fun, but don't accept it as Pokemon fact. That's kind of the whole point of the video, and while the legendary beasts probably weren't literally once evolutions, they can still be connected by lore.
So for this next one, I'm still actually a little bit convinced because the surface evidence is very compelling. We're talking about the theory that Venonat should have evolved into Butterfree, it with its purple body, big red eyes, and small pincer-like mouth, and that Caterpie in the long run should have become Venomoth, sharing the same crested head as Caterpie, as well as Metapod and Venomoth sharing the big round bug eyes, and that these evolutionary lines were swapped over somewhere in production. So help me out here, Ron. Why exactly is this one on your list?
I mean, I'll try to explain. So, the internal index number of each Pokemon in the data of Red and Green basically follows the order in which the Gen 1 Pokemon were created. For example, Rhydon is number 1, Kangaskhan is number 2, and so on and so forth. Venonat is 65 on this list, while Venomoth was created sometime later at number 119. But as the process went along, more and more families were indexed together, like Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree, who are right next to each other.
Right, so while we don't know for sure that Venonat was always meant to evolve into Venomoth, we do know that Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree were almost definitely created consciously with each other in mind. They were created together.
I mean, it makes sense. When you're creating a caterpillar Pokemon, of course you will naturally create a butterfly Pokemon for it to fully evolve into.
Yeah, okay, right, that one does make sense. And actually, while we're debunking theories, we gotta address the big one about Red dying on Mount Silver. Possibly a frostbite. People think because Red speaks with the ... that he's somehow dead. Maybe he's a ghost in the Johto games and that's why people haven't seen him for a while. Come on, this one's a bit silly.
This theory is usually only perpetuated by old school fans who haven't played past Gen 4 or don't play past the main story of recent Pokemon games, because the fact is he appears in the postgame of Black 2 and White 2 in the World Tournament, and even as an adult in recent Gen 7 games. I don't know about you, but ghosts don't age.
This evidence actually also helps debunk another widespread theory about the demise of the Team Rocket boss Giovanni in Heart Gold and Soul Silver in the Time Travel Celebi event.
In this event, within Tojo Falls, we see Giovanni clearly distraught about losing two children over and over again. So when he leaves the cave, and we hear the sound of a waterfall while none of the Pokemon he had at the time knew waterfall, most fans simply assume that he jumps off the bridge and, well, I don't want to say it and get demonetized. However, like we said before, the fact that he appears in Black and White 2's World Tournament means he had to have stayed alive, or else how could he have been there?
Now, some might argue that Giovanni could be a hologram like he is in the Battle Agency, but the big thing I want to argue here, the big point that I want to make, is that Giovanni only battles you with 4 Pokemon. It's very possible that he has 2 other Pokemon on his team, one of which could know Waterfall. In fact, no, you know what? It's a guarantee that one of them knew Waterfall, because while you traveled with Celebi through time and space to get to that cave, Giovanni didn't. He got there somehow, and if we know that there's a waterfall on the outside, then he must have got up it somehow. It's pretty much a guarantee that he has another Pokemon on his team that has waterfall that we just don't see. Maybe an HM slave of some sort.
Plus, if he could live with himself after his subordinates killed Cubone's mother, I'm pretty sure he can live with himself after losing 2 battles.
Speaking of which, I'm pretty sure we have enough evidence now to prove that Cubone isn't a motherless Charmander.
Yeah, almost everything we've seen in the past few generations shows that Cubone's mother is a Marowak and that they are linked conceptually with Kangaskhan. Even more recently, it has been discovered that in the beta of Red and Green, Marowak has an evolution that mimics the theme of Kangaskhan becoming a mother.
Okay, cool, that was a nice quick one. I'll tell you what, why don't we do a speed round? I'm going to throw some theories at you and you can just tell me why they're wrong. For example, Will is Lorelei.
Nope, there's literally no evidence.
But they have 2 of the same Pokemon on their team and share the exact same spot in the Elite Four?
That's not evidence, that's coincidental.
They have the same hair color.
No, they literally don't in 99% of their canonical appearances.
They have the same hair swoosh?
Okay, moving along, Toby. This is all just confirmation bias.
Okay, Psyduck and Golduck's names, they had to be switched in English.
They most certainly were not, considering in Japan, Golduck is still called Golduck, and gold represents the psychic type in the franchise.
Giovanni was a good guy all along, and all of his actions in Red and Blue were just to try and save the day by capturing Mewtwo.
Literally everything he says is about world domination and Pokemon only existing as tools for Team Rocket. He does have a Mewtwo when he's in Team Rainbow Rocket, and did he seem like he's trying to save the world then?
Okay, but Mew was under the truck all along.
This isn't even a theory, man. It's just a flat-out lie. Why don't we get back to proper Pokemon theories?
Like how Genesect is a Kabutops.
Excuse me?
Yeah, well, they both lived around the same time according to the Pokedex, and they both have the same legs, the same head, they're both prolific hunters. This is a theory that I personally disagree with, but I can see why people would think it.
Well, I'm sorry guys, but Genesect is literally said to be an insect, and was consciously designed with the correct anatomy of an insect, having a head, thorax, and abdomen. Kabutops is clearly based on a horseshoe crab, which isn't an insect. Plus, if Team Plasma created Genesect from a Kabutops, wouldn't it make sense to keep those deadly scythes? Multiple Pokemon can exist in the same era. Their head and stance is even shared by other Pokemon. Scyther has scythes, it ain't related to Kabutops.
Fair enough. Well, how about this? Another one of those switched Pokemon theories, where Gyarados should have surely evolved from Dratini and Dragoneb, given they're both long, slender-like dragon bodies, with a more derpy-looking Dragonite evolving from Magikarp.
But Magikarp is based off the Chinese myth of carps who swim up a waterfall and jump over the Dragon Gate to become a dragon, so it would make sense for its evolved form to be an aggressive, serpentine Chinese dragon like Gyarados, and Gyarados is still technically a fish. Gyarados' beta design is actually smaller and more fish-like. Plus, while Dragonite is more European-looking, its description as the guardian of the sea and personality mimic Asian dragons to a T. It's part of his lore.
Well, here is one about the lore of Ho-Oh and its first appearance in the Pokemon anime in episode 1. There's actually 2 theories about this episode, the first one being about when Ho-Oh appeared, it granted Ash Ketchum the wish of eternal happiness, making him 10 forever. The other theory, which is why he doesn't age, is because, yeah, he's in a coma as a result of the Spearow attack. And all the events of the show happen in his head.
I mean, if going on an endless journey was granted by Ho-Oh, why would that also affect every single person Ash meets? Ash's companions don't age as well, and it would mean that Ho-Oh is basically a god if he can make time stop for thousands of people forever. And when it comes to a coma, you can literally say that about any character in any TV show after any incident. It's not a theory. You can say Bart Simpson doesn't age because he's in a coma. The fact is, he's just a cartoon, man. So you can totally theorize, but if you ever say this is a fact, Toby will find you and eat you.
Wait, what? I won't, but while we're on the topic of characters who don't age, let's take a look at Wally, who doesn't seem to age between the events of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and Sun and Moon, which are said to be set 10 years apart.
And that's where I come in. From my perspective, that theory isn't correct. It's true that the events of Ruby and Sapphire take place at the same time as Leaf Green and Fire Red, further explained by this relatively official tweet, but that doesn't include Oras. I theorize that since Oras takes place in a different timeline, like Gen 6 onwards, it would make sense that the events of Hoenn take place years later, only a short amount of time before Sun and Moon, where Wally returns, having not aged more than 1 or 2 years. And no, asthma doesn't make kids not age into adulthood. Wally would be an adult if Oras took place many years before Sun and Moon.
Speaking of kids suffering...
Toby, where are we going with this?
Don't worry, just to Lavender Town, the OG creepy place and home of all the old Pokemon theories. Oh yeah, this one got a lot of traction around it back in the day, and the idea was that the sounds that played through the Game Boy on the original Pokemon Red and Green was so eerie, so wrong that it got into the minds of the children who were listening to it, and it made some of them sick and some of them even kill themselves. And for this reason, the sound file was changed in the later release of Pokemon Blue. This theory has taken one of the creepiest areas of the Pokemon world and solidified it with as a real world horror story.
It's a cool theory, but it isn't even a theory. It's full-blown misinformation. This story is actually just a creepypasta somebody online made up. Of course, the theme, according to music theory, is dreadful, but nobody died as a result. However, people do believe Blue's Raticate may have been buried in Lavender Town after Red defeated him on the SS Anne. The theory states that Blue didn't have time to revive the Pokemon and ends up questioning your reasons for being in the Pokemon Tower when you encounter him there.
However, a lot of this theory is very, very circumstantial, and given that we're talking about your rival, someone who constantly brags about catching every Pokemon that he's ever seen and wanting to create the strongest team, the chances are he literally just put Raticate in the box. Plus, if you had mortally wounded his Raticate on the SS Anne, surely he would have run out of there screaming about how hurt his Raticate was.
So there is more evidence to point to the reality that he was just inside the Pokemon Tower to catch Pokemon. He even says, "I looked all over for powerful Pokemon. Not only that, I assembled teams that would beat any Pokemon type," and states that he caught a Cubone in the Pokemon Tower after inquiring about your Pokedex, which implies that that's why he's in the tower, to catch Pokemon. And he eventually says, "I never made any mistakes raising my Pokemon." I'd assume that if one of his Pokemon died, that would be a pretty huge mistake. It's a theory that you can definitely tell your friends, but it's far from fact. But you never know, in the future Game Freak may change things to appeal to this fan theory.
Granted, I have covered this theory before on my own channel with a little bit more circumstantial evidence, but yeah, I mean, covering theories, you're never always gonna get it right. With that in mind, I have covered and even created a number of theories on my channel that are now almost definitely wrong. So of course, naturally, we're gonna head over there and debunk a few of my own homegrown theories.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, fun. He promises it'll be fun.
So definitely make sure to follow us there by clicking this video, and if you came from Toby, check out my other videos. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and check the description for the music I used, my Twitter, the t-shirts I made for you guys, and more. I'll see you guys very soon. Bye!